Hello and welcome to Series 4, Episode 3 of the Property Empress podcast. I'm Drew, one of your co-hosts, and with me today is the star of the show, Anna.
Hello. Ooh, it's exciting.
Yeah, third
Episode 3, and we hopefully can actually hear you this time.
Well, good news, I've got a new microphone.
Yay!
Literally just got a new microphone. It came tonight, and we're recording this in the evening, and it must have been here less than an hour, so I've been frantically unboxing and plugging things in, and do you know what's quite straightforward, really. I don't know why I waited so long, but yeah, it's good. So hopefully the sound issues from last week, from our first 2 episodes, have been resolved now. You can hear me. You can already hear Anna, which is obviously the more important one anyway. And we can get on with our show today, which, if anyone remembers what we were talking about last week, we will be discussing the best and worst property strategies to implement in 2023. So as we know, it's been a up and down market this year, and some things that perhaps you would have tried 12 months ago maybe don't work now, but we'll be going into a bit of a deep dive into that a bit later on. I'm sure you've got some insights into that, haven't you?
You know, after a long period of record-breaking low interest rates and then 3 or 4 years of booming prices, it's a completely different market. We're going to kind of go what works for this market and what just doesn't work.
Well, there's plenty of strategies. I'm sure you've been listening for long enough now to know how many different directions you can go in property. We're really spending the time today looking into what we think personally is the best, and it is just our opinion, which kind of brings us on rather neatly to a little incident that we had this week on the back of last week, opening podcast. It was episode 1, wasn't it? We were talking about
episode 1 was Welcome, Drew. Episode 2 was something to do, a market update, property market update. And of course, bearing in mind, we don't record these, bearing in mind they go out Monday morning, 8 o'clock. Spoiler, we don't record these at 8 o'clock. We don't go live. You know, we record it in advance. We edit the videos badly sometimes, as it turns out, and then drop the video. So literally, the video drops 8 o'clock on Monday. And then that night...
What did you find?
That night, the mortgages went bananas. So basically, they put the base rates up, I think it was less than 3 weeks before the podcast dropped. And everyone was saying pretty much what we were saying last week. And then in the few days run up to the podcast dropping, the experts suddenly became very divided and the market became very unsettled. So anyway, it was an interesting... So when I dropped the marketing for the for last week's podcast, a few people had a few choice things to say, which is absolutely fine. And I just pointed out, no one knows. I literally phoned my mortgage broker and just said, just curious as to what your thoughts are. And he went, well, no one knows. With
the TikToks, it's a minute, maybe 3-minute snippet of that was about a 40-minute podcast, I think, that we did last week. Certainly, we're on the mic for a long time. The things we covered in that, I'm pretty sure we talked about the possibility of it not having exactly what we said. And actually, we said that we didn't know, and we rely on experts. But of course, you can't squeeze all of that into a 1-minute snippet of the video that we'd recorded. And actually what it told was the bit that we did leave in, the bit that you put on your Property Empress TikTok account, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Was what had the backlash, because everybody else... Well, not backlash.
It wasn't really backlash. It was more just, I think actually they're going to go up a bit and stuff. But I did kind of point out that when you look at what the quote-unquote experts are saying, they're literally divided. They've got these industry experts. It was some website, they'd got all these industry experts talking about what they thought was going to be happening, and it was literally 50-50 as to whether they thought it was going to stay, whether they thought the base rates were going to increase. So and ultimately the market is uncertain at the moment. Some people think the base rate is going to go up, some people think they're going to stay. And I kind of, for me, and one of the things I said in a follow-up TikTok was that they were increasing base rates to try and bring inflation down. And actually, for the first time, inflation is coming down. It's just it wasn't coming down as quickly as they were hoping. So the Bank of England really have that decision to make, whether they keep putting interest rates up to drive down inflation or whether they let it come naturally down. Because there was actually 2 of the 9 committee at the last base rate increase. 2 of the 9 committee actually said that they didn't want to increase base rates. So there are, some people who are like, we don't want to over egg it or overcook it, you know. So it's just, you know, I just thought it was interesting that, you know, but on the Monday, just to kind of be really clear, what happened on the Monday that the podcast dropped was basically the banks started whacking their rates up. They actually started just rejecting people, like, you know, like pulling their products basically. I spoke to my mortgage broker. There was also a really interesting video that I shared from a mortgage broker that we follow one another. And it was just really interesting. And basically he said, like, at the end of last year, all the rates went up. Yeah. And we referenced that actually last week, didn't we? And then they kind of, like, the rates went up. They put the same thing. They pulled the products and then they settled. So again, I'm kind of like, I think probably the same thing will happen. But, you know, if in doubt, speak to a good mortgage broker, find out advice for you. But I just thought it was worth mentioning. I think it's very interesting, like the timing that we were aligned with everything. And then as it drops, all this uncertainty came up. So...
But it shows anyone who's looking into investing and trying to understand the market just to keep your eye out for what is happening, because it can change. While we try and give the best information we can, the market changes all the time, and things like interest rates in a volatile market can be a decision that's made fairly quickly. I mean, relatively quickly, but it can be something that makes a swing from something being almost certainty to something being a complete untruth in a very short period of time. But in all honesty, we don't know yet what's going to happen. It could be exactly what we said, or it could go up more, or it could go down. I mean, there are the three options. There any more it can do?
No, exactly.
Stay the same or go down. It's our best bet from what we understand the market doing. But it is important to keep an eye on things on a regular basis when you're making your decisions, and having the right experts in place to take your advice from.
And market proof your portfolio.
Absolutely.
I need to, and this is the thing, it's like, understand how to navigate any market, invest wisely, invest in a way that you know can navigate anything where you've made an informed choice, and then market proof. Like, there's certain things, and again, this is probably something we should go into more detail, particularly soon, probably. Yeah. But there are certain ways you can market proof your portfolio. You can't get rid of all the risk, but you can absolutely reduce the risk. So for us, just to give you some insight, interest rates going up, prices changing, all this kind of thing, it makes no difference to either of our portfolios. No. We are investing this year knowing that there's uncertainty in the market, and we're still investing. So what we want to do with you guys is we want to show you how we invest so that you don't have to worry about short-term fluctuations. You've got your eye on the long-term prize.
Absolutely. It's a long-term... I say game, it's not game really, is it? But it is a long-term strategy to employ with property. With all the fast movement in interest rates, it's not something you really dip in and out of in a few months. It's you're looking 3, 5, 10, maybe 20 years down the road. Your property investment is a portfolio that should be setting you up for your life. It's not something. I mean, if you know how how property prices work, and you know that over time, consistently, they will go up in value. And knowing that, why would you employ a short-term panic strategy just based on what the short-term market does? Knowing that it's in safe hands in the long term, and it's the right way to look at it is to look years down the line, not just months.
Totally agree. Couldn't have said it better myself.
Thank you. Right, with that out of the way.
With that, or following on from that, with that in mind.
Yeah. So, talking strategy.
I love a bit of strategy.
We are fast approaching halfway through the year already. So those who haven't done anything so far in 2023 and want to get started, or are already in a position of investing and perhaps just trying to diversify, grow, change, what's your advice? What do you think is a good strategy? What's your first strategy you would recommend to people in 2023 and the back end of 2023 as a property investor?
I'm so excited to answer this question because I get all the time on my TikToks, I get people say buy-to-lets don't work. And I say they do work. When you do it the right way, when you invest wisely into buy-to-lets, they're an amazing strategy. So very boring, but buy-to-lets, without a doubt, are still my favorite strategy. And that is because they are exactly like you were saying, a long-term passive income, but it is heavily caveated. Like 2 years ago, when we had record-breaking low interest rates and prices were going up and everyone's going, woohoo, anyone can make money in property. Even then I was going, you've got to invest in the right area, because again, that's a short-term fluctuation that went in most people's favor. Now we're having short-term fluctuations that are going against most people. Yep. So again, the heavy caveat is invest in buy-to-lets, but do it the right way. So it is being very clear on what your primary aim is, like what your primary purpose is. Is it a monthly income? Are you looking to put your money in property for it to go up over the long run? Like, what's the primary objective? And then find an area that suits that strategy. So most people, they're looking for cash flow. Most people are looking for a nice monthly passive income. So that if that's the case, you need to be investing in the Midlands and North, and you need to be buying the right property in the right area. Do it in an area comparison, make an informed choice, and invest in that area. Get below market value properties. So through auctions, direct to vendor, through existing relationships, like build relationships with estate agents, and get cheap properties, renovate them to add value. Ideally, put money in the property to get it up and running, pull the money back out again, and then just leave it to give you this beautiful income. Over the long run, they go up in value. Reduce your risk, use fixed interest mortgages, and we'll talk in another episode about how to market-proof your portfolio. When you do that, again, buy-to-let's beautiful. Yep. Even recently, I've been doing buy-to-let numbers, and they still cash flow good £300 a month, net passive income, which is still, I think, incredibly good. They're not what they were, like 450, but this is for 100 grand property. So this is, Yeah.
But this is
good
what
money.
You said about market protection in the future.
Yeah.
So it's stress testing the portfolio. Now, we said we'll go into it in a bit more detail, but it's probably important to talk about it now with the interest rates skyrocketing because we're so wrong about August. That's fine. I'm over it. I think stress testing is really important. And even if we just touched it today, rather than going into detail, just looking at, what do you think? What do you think about stress testing? What would your advice be on that?
Well, no, you say first, because I think I know what you're going to say, and then I want to add something else to that.
Okay,
but I might be wrong.
I'd be stress testing at probably a couple of % above the current interest rate for your mortgage. Not necessarily the interest rate of the bank, but the interest rate of your mortgage itself. So if the mortgage then goes up, if you're on a flexi, you're out of your fixed term, then the price of the borrowing will go up each month, and it's just making sure that your bills will not only covered by that with your rent coming in, but you're actually exceeding it to make a profit, because nobody should be feeding your mortgage each month for a rental in a proper professional's buy-to-let portfolio. It's if you're putting money into it, it's not making you money, and it's not good investment. Even if your strategy is capital appreciation, it's something that your capital appreciation, if you're putting money in each month, you're just chipping away at what you're earning over the long term. So you need to make sure that the investment itself is a cash flowing investment, and that means making a positive amount at a higher percentage than you are paying at the moment, to mitigate any market changes in the future. And that's what I think. Yeah.
In terms of practically, how can you do that? If you follow me on TikTok, which hopefully everyone listening or watching does, I do buy-to-let numbers and I did Leicester as the last one. So you'll see that I go and look at what the current mortgages were. So I think I used like 3.94% for a 2-year fixed term mortgage. And I used 2-year, by the way, just because the idea is you want to refinance after a couple of years, pull your money back out, and then lock in for like 5 years. Because people always are like, why aren't you doing 5 years? And I'm like, because I want to refinance, pull my money out. But anyway, so I use I think 3.84, 3.94%. What Drew's talking about is just adding 2 extra percent. So like 5.94, 5.84. And if it still cash flows in a way that works for you. So there's always, people tend to have a biting point, 100, 150 pounds, which sounds like, oh my God, is that all? But the idea is this is like worst case scenario. You know that actually it's likely to be, £300 a month or more, particularly as your rents go up. But it's just to make sure that you're not going to be, like Drew said, in the negative cash flow. So if you're not sure, go to TikTok. Again, I share the videos on Instagram as well. So if you're not on TikTok, click on Instagram and Facebook. That's the stress test. 100% agree with that. Yep. I would also add to that, when I talk about market proofing your portfolio, I'm talking about when you buy the property, exactly that, do the stress test. So say you're doing say you've got a 2-year fixed term mortgage, or beyond that, the 5-year fixed term. The idea is 2 situations. One, when the market moves a lot, like we've had in the last 12 months, review your portfolio. Look at how the properties are performing. Look at what their value is, their loan to value. Review the properties individually. Review the portfolio overall. And if you find you have, and I hate to say it, but dead wood in the portfolio, then you have to sell and replenish with ones that are working better. You might have a property that works brilliantly, but then as the market moves, you're like, it just doesn't work. And we had this. We did this last year when the market everything started moving, and we were like, what's going on? And we looked at it, and we ended up selling 2 buy-to-lets, and we're replenishing with better performing properties. So if there's a big market movement, do that. But also 6 months before you come to the end of your fixed term mortgage. So if you have a 5-year fixed term, 4.5 years in, or if you have a 2-year, year and a half in, review your property. So we have this in a few months, don't we? We're going to have a couple of properties that come into the end. So we're going to be sitting down, set a notification 6 months before the end, review the portfolio, look at the rates, which is going to be interesting. Like, I need to check when the notification is, but we will have to sit down and go, based on the current market rates, the current mortgage rates, is this property still going to cash flow in a way that works for the portfolio? If not, you have 6 months to sell and replenish it with one that does. And if it is okay, then you can just refinance. But it's thinking about it before you're forced to act on it. And again, we had a property that came out of a 5-year term, and we did that recently. And because of the fact that we only pull the money out once, like we buy a property, refinance after a couple of years, pull the money out, and then just let it build in equity, the rent goes up, and hopefully the mortgage stays. Even with the mortgage rates going up, it's still I don't know the number. It cash flows incredibly well because it's about 50% loan to value.
Yeah.
So there's so much that's a very quick summary, and we can go into maybe in more detail at some point. But that was the summary.
Yeah.
I'm not very good at summarising.
Well, bear in mind, with the equity value we've got now, we leverage as much as we can when we take out buy-to-let mortgage. So we're always typically looking at 75. In fact, that might have even been 80%, that one, because we were getting 80% at the time we bought those.
No, that was...
one of the ones we bought around then was that. Maybe it wasn't that one.
It wasn't that one. That was one of the ones that we sold.
Right.
But I know which one you're talking about.
But because it was just, there was a group all at around the same time, and these are the ones that we're reviewing now.
So because we work with angel investors, we have to be able to pull enough money out to repay the initial investment. So we have on occasion gone to 80, and I think one time went to 85%, just to make sure we pulled all the money out with interest. With the 85%, because we refinanced like 9 months after we bought it. So it meant we could repay the angels super quick. And then as the prices go up, you can refinance on a 75%.
Yeah. And then you look at 2, 3, 4, 5 years down the line, and we're suddenly 50% of it is ours outright. And that's just by carrying on long-term mortgages we've done. So, I mean, this is just standard buy-to-let stuff we do. This isn't anything special. This is what you teach. This is what you've been teaching on your courses.
But this is the difference. I was doing a TikTok and again, I shared it across all the platforms. I was like, and I felt a bit mean doing it. I said, if I was an amateur investor, this is how I'd invest. And I kind of put in the comments, and I kind of said, look, I mean this with so much love, but there is a way you can invest as, one way, or you can do it professionally. And I've already had someone message me going, oh my God, I was about to start and I was going to do exactly this. Like, what do I do as a professional investor? So there's a way you can do things so that you, again, market proof, so that you're structuring your portfolio, giving yourself the income, reducing the risk, so when there's these market changes, it's not going to be so painful. Anyway.
Yes. So buy-to-lets,
but done in the right way.
Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, buy-to-lets are your baseline.
I love buy-to-lets.
It's your baseline investment that really should always be looked at in any market, and just finding a way, because it's your long-term strategy. But then, with that said, you must have some other strategies up your sleeve for 2023.
No, just buy-to-let.
Just buy-to-let. Yeah. Okay.
No, my other one. Okay.
So we'll end.
So I will, that's the end. The other one goes hand in hand. I mean, if you watch me on social media, if you watch my lives, you'll be so sick of me saying this, but buy-to-lets combined with rent to SA, love it. Love it as a strategy.
Now you're talking.
So now it's talking. So do you want to share? So do you agree with that, actually? Do you agree with rent to SA in this market?
Oh, I do. I mean, rent to SA, any rent to rent products are really good when you're not sure what's happening.
Rent to HMO?
We'll come back to that. I would say any rent to rent service at the moment, certainly the way I do it, works really, really well, because we've had 20 minutes in now. Well, we talked about the whole time, basically the interest rates of mortgages. What don't you have with a rent to rent contract? A mortgage to pay. It's rent. And what I do, I secure long-term contracts on all of my rentals. So that means at least 3 years, at least 3. I've got 5-year contracts that I'm currently working on with landlords who just want a regular income every single month. So those contracts they're secured. The amount I'm paying for the next 5 years is locked in. It's not going up. It's not changing. I know what I'm paying for the next 5 years for these deals. So I know that the market changes aren't going to affect that. I know that doing a short-term rental and making the money per night, as long as I'm hitting the right targets there, then I can plan my strategy and I can plan the income for the business for potentially the next 5 years on some of the deals. And the great thing about that as well is it's not just the rent is secured, it's also that the value of the night stays are going to go up. It's going to cost more. The more demand happens for holidays, particularly if there's demand for certain areas, because some of the areas there are seasonal demands that I work with, and finding those seasonal demands, knowing that you can charge probably more next year than you can this year, just means that the income for this deal, for these deals you're doing, are just going to increase over time. So if you're looking for a solid, pretty predictable and safe, high flowing cash flow strategy, then rent to rent all day long.
Yeah.
And it's, as you already talked about this is what I'm doing at the moment. And the key notes to this is get them for as long as possible and find the key areas where you're investing and make sure you've got a very clear strategy in your target market so that you know who you're selling to and you know who's going to be renting it. And that's what I do.
Yeah, beautiful. Do you know, I hadn't even thought, actually, you just said that, and I completely agree that when things get tight, inflation's gone up, with cost of living crisis and all that kind of thing, people stay locally. They can't afford to go abroad. And I'd never thought about the fact that the market means that the cash flow dips a bit for the buy-to-lets, but it goes up for the Airbnbs.
Yes.
And I was like, that's exactly what you want in two complementary strategies. You want where the market affects one, it will affect the other one in a positive way.
Exactly.
Like if it affects it negatively, the other one is positive. I just love it. I love the two together. So the idea is that, the two together, you have the long-term growth, the passive income of the buy-to-lets, and then with the rent to SA, you can maximize your income. Beautiful.
Yeah, it's good.
Also, I would also just add as well, the vast majority of our landlords, we have manifested landlords that don't have mortgages. So they're not affected. No. So I know there's some that have been a bit affected by it, but again, we work with them and it's been absolutely fine. It hasn't been an issue.
Yeah. The charge increases are often not mortgage rates, because most of these, the easiest way these work in, particularly in flats, which is kind of a target specialty that I work with, a lot of these is not the mortgage at all, because not having a mortgage makes it much easier to do. Makes it much more straightforward. You don't have to, it's another person you don't need permission from. Service charges and ground rent are the moving factor for landlords with flats.
Have you found that the landlords, with everything going on in the market, has that pushed those fees up for landlords? Have you noticed?
Some, yeah. Oh. Particularly the ones that, it's electricity costs, lighting and maintenance costs. Of course, and stuff like that.
So it's to do with the utilities,
Yeah, one of the buildings is centrally heated from the building itself, so it's not heated in the flats. They have a central generator, which is all part of the ground rent instead of the individual flats. So it keeps the prices in the property down, but the cost for the landlord is higher. Yeah. So you have to take that into account. But this is all, this is all mapped out. We make it very clear what we are offering, and it's not just about the maximising the money with something like this. It's about the convenience of being completely hands off for the 5 years.
Yeah.
Imagine having a buy-to-let that you never have to worry about and you know that your money's coming in on the 1st of every month or whatever the date might be. And that's what it is.
No maintenance costs.
No. I mean,
no management costs.
My contracts have...
No tenants, no tenant regulations.
No.
Oh, it's amazing.
It's very easy.
I love property.
I don't know why every landlord's not doing it personally, but then that's me. I'm on the other side.
I've said that I like I like working with tenants and I like the experience. So I've always kind of said I wouldn't personally do it, but if at any point I was like, I don't want to deal with tenants anymore, I want to be totally hands off. Like say we want to go world schooling the kids or something, I would 100% work with a rent-to-rent management company. Yeah,
I mean, I never charge my landlords for any maintenance. I pay for it myself. They're very lucky people.
Yeah.
Sometimes it's proper repairs, but you know, it's part of it. It keeps the rent we're keeping the rent at the same time. I don't mind paying a few hundred here and a few hundred there. It all comes out of general maintenance, which is accounted for anyway each month. So it's just about planning and knowing what to do. So yeah, any landlords out there who are sick and tired of turnover every 6 months, how about a 5-year contract with us? So yeah, I mean, we'll do one on rent to rent, I'm sure.
We definitely will.
Does this count? I mean, I've bleated on for about 10 minutes doing this.
No, it's good. No, but this is why it's very relevant because you're explaining why it's such a good strategy in this market.
I mean, it really works.
So the increase, I mean, I know you talked about that particular flat, which I freaking love, by the way, the fact that it's always like, because I hate being cold and I like the fact that flat's always nice and warm. The increase in bills, like the cost of living, hasn't had a massive impact on your Airbnb business?
I mean, it has affected it, of course. The bills have gone up incredibly high in the last 12 months. So that does affect cash flow, but it's like any landlord, those costs get passed on. It just means my rents have gone up. It just means if you look anywhere, if you're going on holiday and you need a weekend away and you get on Airbnb or you go on booking.com, you'll just see the prices are higher than they were last year. This is how people get around it. The worst affected are the common user and the tenants for any kind of gas, electricity, energy hikes at all. Us landlords we get around it by doing that. I mean, the more generous ones and the more compassionate ones will just find a kind of happy medium where they'll say, well, look, we'll split this, we'll take some of this, but the rent's got to go up a little bit because it's just not covering. But it just gets passed down. Unfortunately, when you're bottom of the chain, it's a really difficult place to be. So what strategies in 2023 would you avoid? What would you recommend people stay away from investing in at this current market?
HMOs.
Right. Why is that?
Because for so many reasons, HMOs they were so popular at one point, and it was always like they were the alternative to buy-to-lets. You could get the same house. You know, you could buy 3-bedroom, 2 reception room, two downstairs reception rooms, buy the same house, rent it to a family for £500 a month, or you could turn one of the downstairs reception rooms into a 4th bedroom, rent the rooms individually for £350 a room, and get significantly higher, income for the same property. It was like this, wow, amazing. And then everyone wanted HMOs. People wanted big HMOs, us included. We got a 10-bedroom HMO. Yeah. And then they were like, oh, there's too many HMOs. So they bought in, Article 4 areas. So if you're going to convert a regular house into an HMO in a very built-up HMO area, you have to get planning permission. The council has to give you permission. So it's been through an interesting journey. But basically, everyone loved them because you could get higher cash flow. So fast forward to 2023, because usually when you're renting the room, because you can't, like, if you imagine you've got 3 people in 3 different bedrooms, or 4, including the downstairs one, you can't split a gas bill. You can't split an electricity bill. So you tend to include the bills. And we're literally talking to someone at the moment, aren't we, who has an 8-bedroom HMO in London. Right, yeah. And it's a double whammy of mortgage rates going up. So this particular chap, his mortgage was he's got a very small mortgage for London, but he's owned the property for an awfully long time. But he had a £300 a month mortgage that's gone up to £1,000 a month. On top of that, all the bills, like you said before, have gone through the roof. I mean, I don't think anyone is not feeling the pinch of the bills. So the double whammy just means that it just doesn't work. Like it just doesn't work for all the extra cost and aggro. But it was also a little bit tricky because with buy-to-lets, you could buy a property, structure it so you can refinance, get your money back. HMOs, it's much harder to do for various reasons. And typically you normally really have to refinance twice to get all your money out. There's so much more regulation with it. Quite rightly, it's an increased fire risk. But it's just a bit of a ball ache, for want of a better word. And now, but the idea was you get better cash flow, but now you don't even get that. So if you go on Rightmove, I mean, I've seen it in Northampton, they are flooding the market. And of course, there's also this thing about the valuation of HMOs. When you're refinancing, you can value it as a commercial property. And actually, it's not the case. If the lender can just dismantle it and sell it as a family home, they would. Anyway, so a different thing. But what I'm noticing is they're being sold cheap because the landlords are like, I just want rid of it. They're going through auction cheap, just want rid of it. So that it's flooding the market. And they just, I haven't done the numbers, but from what I can gather and just knowing the market, I just don't think that it's a lot of extra hassle and work, and you just don't get as good a cash flow. They probably do cash flow, but not that much more than buy-to-lets probably.
It's probably just ending its wave at the moment.
Yeah.
It's not to say that regulations won't change in the future and they'll become more relevant again. But what's happened is that everyone has done this strategy, and it's really saturated the market, and then suddenly the demand's not there for them. So they're trying to sell them off, but then it's at the point where everyone's selling them off. So there's you have anyone who's trying to buy a property like that has their pick, and if they want to convert it into something else from that, then they go for the one that works best for their the structure financially, rather than picking the best quality one. Because if they're stripping it down anyway, they don't want it at high end. It doesn't matter. They want something that they can get for the best price that works for whatever they're converting it to. And most likely it's a big house, than more than a split room strategy. That's what I would say with that.
Do you know, the only way I would do HMOs, and this is what I was thinking about doing at one point, is I would buy a student HMO, so I know that I'm not making anyone homeless, that they're moving out, and I'd convert it into flats. I'd split them up because usually they're en suite and stuff, so it'd be easier to split into flats. You can then add value to it, so you could get a cheaper HMO that's kind of already roughly as a flat. And then basically, if you can split it, convert them into flats, that will then force the value up. But also the not making people homeless is a thing that is important to me. So that's, if I was going to do HMOs, I'd buy HMOs and then turn them into flats. Right. Basically.
I mean, I'd rent them and rent the rooms.
Airbnb. Actually, it's a really good point.
It would work if it's got to be the right location, exactly. And I've got to know what demographic I'm targeting for it. I've got to know who wants to rent in that place, and then target those with the marketing. But certainly you could rent them from landlords as one strategy. But not to buy and do at the moment, I don't think. Because
we're talking to someone at the moment, the London HMO, we're looking at turning into a rent to SA. Gosh, we can really talk about property.
It's going to be a long series, isn't it? Maybe I should stop, because this is your platform. Then it's me be asking you more questions, and I stop chipping in.
Saying that just because it's the Property Empress podcast, but it's you are kind of, there's that saying, behind every successful woman there's a tribe of successful women cheering her on. It's the same kind of thing here with us. No, I'm not calling you a woman, by the way.
I thought I was more of a Smee to your Captain Hook. Okay.
Oh my God, that's a horrible reference. But no, it's good. And I think it's really, because obviously we talked about rent to SA, it's so good to hear you talk about that. You're living and breathing rent to SA at the moment.
Early in the morning and late at night.
Yeah, apparently. But no, that's great. Thank you. Thank you so much.
Thank you, everybody. Yes, so episode 4 next week. We've talked a little bit last week about the episodes we're going to be covering in this series and the particular subjects. Next week, we had a little talk about the next one in line, and we think that the landlord reforms would be an appropriate one to cover right now.
It's tenant reform bill that has come out this month, I think about a week or two ago. Yeah. There's a lot going on.
Yeah, seems relevant at the moment. Let's cover it before it becomes out of date. Out of date, like our mortgage advice.
We're not giving mortgage advice.
Of course not.
By the way, no legal, financial, mortgage or tax advice was given today.
No, but next week we'll do the reforms.
The renters reform.
Renters reform is what it's called.
We'll go through what the different, because there's a few different areas. We'll summarise what it is and how we're going to adapt our portfolio.
But that's it for today. I hope you've got some good insights into what to do now for 2023. If you've been sitting on your hands waiting for us to broadcast it, then now you know. So get out there, get your buy-to-lets and some rent-to-rents going. And stay away from HMOs, apparently.
Before we finish, we do just need, if they'd like to contact us, if anyone listening or watching would like to contact us, then how would they do so?
Well, they go to the Property Empress website. You're also on TikTok as Property Empress, and Instagram. You've got Facebook page as well, and YouTube. And
if you are enjoying the new series, then a 5-star review on the different platforms, like I think Spotify do it, I think Apple Podcast do it as well. A 5-star review would be greatly appreciated. Thank you so much. And if you're not enjoying it, I'm so sorry.
No. I'm sorry, because we all know why that would be.
No, not at all. It's been really fun recording.
I've enjoyed it.
We definitely talk much more than we probably need to.
I got too much to say.
I know. I think that's the problem.
Yeah.
There's so much to say. No, but both of us, we've both got a lot to say about when it comes to property.
Thank you so much, everybody.
Thank you.
We will be back next week and look forward to seeing you all there.
Bye.
Bye.